Good evening, everyone that has tuned in, of course, on Black Fire Network. It is a Monday. This is a fresh week. We are from that long weekend that has been going on since Friday up to yesterday evening. That long weekend. Hope your weekend has been good. For those that things have not moved on well during the weekend, mm, we pray that, of course, you gain the momentum because it is a fresh week, new vibes this week. So, uh, for those that, of course, have gained success, I want to congratulate you and celebrate with you. Of course, what you have achieved, the success you have got over this weekend since the last time we were together here online. Um, like I already said, for those that watch us on different social media platform, and that is Facebook, Black Fire Network radio station, endeavor to follow and like this page. For those that watch us from, of course, YouTube, that's Black Fire Network too. You do the same, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can be notified every time and then we are here. You always notified on our YouTube, of course, broadcasts that we make as Black Fire Network. And of course, those that are watching us from Twitter, you're doing a great job. Endeavor, if you're new on this platform, you're new on watching, you're watching me for the first time, watching Black Fire shows for the first time. Endeavor on, of course, Twitter to like the page and follow our page on Twitter. Today's topic is a bit interesting. Um, Whenever we have elections of course, in African countries, we expect new things in our countries. We have that excitement whenever it is election time in African countries, and this is because almost all African countries, they are going through a lot. They are going through a lot and a lot and a lot and a lot. So we expect new things whenever we go in for elections in African countries. And of course, today's topic is Senegal elections. We are going to talk about elections that have been going on in, of course, Senegal. Elections that have taken some good time for preparation, and of course, to ending to ongoing real elections that were held on Sunday. We see that Senegal. When we look at Senegal, of course, uh, the elections took place on March, and that was 24th, um, 2024, and that is yesterday when the elections were carried out. So, news all over the world different people have been talking about these elections differently. But of course, several candidates vied for the highest office in Senegal. Here, the key contenders that, of course, managed to be in these elections. We have someone who is called Ibosu Daimoye Faye. This is the leading candidate everyone is putting eyes on. Everyone is like, and actually, this guy is an opposition leader. Uh, Everyone is pointing at this guy as at this guy, so that everyone is having hopes of this guy to win the election. So, representing the opposition coalition, Faye stepped in as the candidate in the place of Osmani Sonko. So, his campaign focused on anti-corruption measures, restoring stability in Senegal, and prioritizing economic sovereignty. So, notably, the incumbent president Macky Sall, we see that he chose not to seek re-election after serving the 2 terms in office. So, this is the opposition leader that has been on top. Um, that has been so like that has put like the world is watching this man. The world is pointing at this man. Like very many people are like they think that this man is going to actually win these elections because of what has been going around. You know, people, there is a way people in African countries behave towards opposition leaders. They hope opposition leaders can bring something in their country. So The next candidate is, of course, Amadou Ba. This is Ba. This Ba, the candidate of the ruling party BBY, also contested the election. So his platform and the policies were aligned with the ruling coalition agenda. So the elections are closely watched, and both Faye and Ba emerged as favorites to become the next president of Senegal. The voting process was significant, especially since President Macky Sall was stepping down after his tenure. So it's not very easy to see presidents in Africa, but to see like presidents in Africa stepping out of elections, letting for other people go in for elections, letting other people to contest. So this is something that is unusual in African countries for someone to come in and let other people, of course, engage in elections without their possession, without putting a hand, without putting a fingerprint in in elections. So if we see that Senegal actually can act as an example, so incumbent president in Senegal yazze ebbali n'aleka bano bakontesting after his 3 year term. Just step out and let these two people to contest. Abantu beesiriwaza, abantu beesiriwaza eyo mu Africa babigona. Eh, there again. Maziri abo basira. Is that okay? Eh?
Oya no dúró. Oya no dúró. Ṣé ó tẹ̀lé ní ìlú ọmọ dúró dúró dáa?
Senegal.
Ó jẹ́ gbogbo gbòòrò tó mẹ́rin tí. Báyọ̀ tẹ̀sí tó wá dé dúró. Òkèèrà sí òtí. Sọ̀rọ̀ mi bá kí àwọn kékeré wọn sí. Sọ̀rọ̀ go, owó tó bá mú pé lọ́jọ́ sọ̀rọ̀ bóyá kọ́ dájú. Did you serve this all time? Oh my god. Mm. Eh? Just watching the book. Are you saying? So whatever go on masanyarazi bamwe bali kunywa bali bagikomye. I'm sorry guys, I'm feeling so cold and I've been sick of late and I've been having a malaria or something. I don't know, but I usually feel so extremely cold and I don't know. Is it cold? INNOSSETU, do you feel cold? I didn't know it's not normal. Anyway, so you can tell me the sweater and stuff, so I'm trying not to sweat that I get myself on. But who said I'm cool are you? What's joking at you? We better okay no kwa. You said we just have to sing it. Back work as school. So anyway, what else did you get? I can't go to it. In case you guys are not, we are not in our usual place because we don't have electricity the other side. So we moved somewhere where there is electricity.
So, I'm sorry, guys. I was saying that it is not usual to see presidents like in African countries stepping out for elections. Like you see the same president, like asking for other time, for other terms. The next time. So it is not usual, but we see that in Senegal, this guy, the incumbent president in Senegal, stepped out to let other people go in for, of course, elections. So
Magufuli did it sometime.
Magufuli did it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember he did that day.
Mm. But of course, the two people that we are seeing that were competitive because the elections were held yesterday. They were held yesterday, so people voted yesterday. But we see like a lot of journalists all over the world they are writing about this guy. They're writing about this guy, the opposition leader
Mm.
Bosul Basiru. So Daimoye in Senegal, like he's expected to win this election because has been in opposition for some good time.
He likes some basic.
The likes of Besigye has been in opposition. So there is a way people in African countries respect opposition leaders. I don't know why, what they think about opposition leaders, but of
Over
course.
there, intelligent person.
But of course, this Bosoro Domoye is a Senegalese politician and a former tax inspector in Senegal. He's a former general secretary of the dissolved, of course, Pastif and the bill for presidential elections in 2024 elections. So, in place, this qualified candidate of Msum Sonko, who was the president, he is elected president of the Republic of Senegal March 25th, 2025, 2024. Sorry.
Mm.
this opposition leader. We see that when we look at his education in 2005 and his bachelorate. He's, of course, successfully attained the master's degree in law, subsequently cleared both competitive exams, enrolled in the national exams of administration, and many other. He has a lot of, he attained education within Senegal and outside Senegal.
Oh,
So, his political area, we see that initially, against when the party was founded, Faye swiftly ascended to become one of the most prominent figures within the party. He would go on to become one of the indigenous and designers of Sonko's program for his presidential candidacy in 2019. The president that of course was in Senegal
mm.
before this guy, this opposition leader. However, winning 56 seats under the Alliance of Liberty of People. So we see that presidential campaigns after certainly over the possibility of so-called being a candidate in presidential elections, endorsed Fayez in November 2023 as the candidate for the 2024 presidential election. So, despite of him being detained, this guy actually was detained of course,
Yeah, because
for me, I have a feeling. Sorry, for me, I have a feeling like this guy was elected because of sympathy. Because this guy had just left the prison.
yeah,
He was
yeah, because
yeah, one he
mm,
was released towards the election end. I guess this guy just got it, like because of
that
sympathy. Because,
is is also important.
hmm?
Very important.
Not so much,
Mm. Definitely, but it was probably maybe how
But
it
but
is.
but but, but, but there are some things that normally politicians they oversee. Hmm? Hmm?
Mm.
I guess. I guess there are some things you also be done.
Maybe I'll put some later.
They will be there.
Opposition leaders are always, we have experienced, we have seen where a lot of Africa's opposition leaders are arrested. And since he was an opposition leader, definitely, and actually being in, of course, the field of politics for a very good time, he won the hearts of the people. And until now, a lot of people are using the example that happened in Senegal to, of course, call upon different African leaders who have become, dictators don't want to let go the leadership and the presidency seat, opposition, like people call it, like as they call it. So that for me, I believe this guy, what you call the prison sympathy, he has been in the field for a very long time. He has been in the political field and all these others. Most of the people who are coming were a little, new. And if you look at the previous situation of the president of Senegal, he was under pressure. There
He's
was
a born
too,
of 1980.
there was too much pressure, imparted on this the former Senegalese president at that time. And if we still follow the previous, the time when he was in position in the presidential office, there is a lot that, of course, happened in Senegal. And at times, I feel like also the situation, because remember, we have always had these parties cheerleading, the leadership. We have had. like we've had different parties all over Africa, and usually since leadership rotates, within the political parties that are formed in the governments, it is very hard for, more especially in Africa, it is very hard for us to see another person from a different party coming in and of course uh, taking over presidency or winning elections. All right. So there is still a lot as we celebrate that this guy decided to say, "I'm done. So I'm done with my service, and this I've been here for this duration. So I'm supposed to end here. So let others also take a chance or have a chance of being leaders." Something that we hardly see in Africa. People have been powerful. I don't know how long, for a very long time. So thank you. If someone decides to wake up and there is still a lot of questions that are flowing, even within Senegal as a country, like why has he decided to, of course, step down? A lot of people did not expect this. Yes, he has been trying to, like, I promise he's gonna do it, but people did not expect that this was gonna happen. But he did it, and of course, Senegal had the election, and we see another president, just like Innocent was telling you.
So, in Senegal, early results from Sunday's presidential elections put opposition candidate Bossuor Domoye Faye in the lead. So, at least 5 of the 18 other candidates already conceded to Faye, who is backed by a popular opposition figure, Ousmane Sonko. So, who himself, of course, is barred from running, but former Prime Minister Amadou Ba, who has been backing of the outgoing presidential's market sales, said that he expects the vote would heed the runoff. So, a final provisional vote tally is expected on Tuesday this
Mm.
week. Supporters of Sonko and Faye took the streets to celebrate nonetheless. So we see that we see that the opposition coalition is so of a populist candidate in Senegal's presidential elections that were held, of course, on Sunday is set to win after the closest rival concede. So, Amadou Ba, a 62-year-old former financial minister, yeah, and immediate past prime minister of Sahel's government, who ran as the ruling party coalition choice, conceded defeat to Faye on Monday, congratulated him. So, Segenary's law requires a candidate to win 50% or more of the vote to be declared the president after the first round. Failing, which is the second round between the top two candidates, will decide the election. So, Faye, 44, a 44-year, was one of the 19 candidates on the ballot in the contest to replace President Macky Sall, who is in term limited. So, he's an ally of Osman Sonko, the populist figure, of course, who had been the loudest opposition voice in the years leading up to this election. So Sonko was barred from running the presidential after a criminal conviction, but his party galvanized the coalition to back Faye. Earlier, Ba had described celebrations of a supposed Faye's victory as a manipulative on Sunday evening, maintaining that a second round of voting would be needed. So, Faye had only 10 days to campaign because this guy was in hospital. So,
Mm.
ahead of March 2024 elections, like Sonko, he had been jailed by the Salehs. the administration since last April, but received the Constitutional Council's approval to be, of course, contender in the elections. Both men campaigned together after being released from the prison. Like Sonko, Faye's former tax official in Senegal, his platform had, of course, depended on Sonko's popularity and prestige party, which he was a secretary general to the Sonko. One of their key policy prescriptions is for Senegal to have its own colors. You know that Senegal doesn't have its own colors.
Mm.
We're going to talk about that. So, if a reform of the Euro-pegged CFA currency system had eight West African countries use fails, an official announcement of the election results in first round of voting is expected on Wednesday or Tuesday this week. So, we see that though it is widely regarded as an example of democratic stability, it's often turbulent region. Senegal veered towards the constitutional crisis over the past months following Saleh's postponement of elections in early February. Sunday's vote followed a defiant rejection by opposition parties against the postponement of Senegal top court's ruling that uh, an election must be held before Saleh is due to leave the office on April 2nd.
Mm.
So we see that early signs from Senegal presidential portal on Sunday put opposition leader Bosur Domaye Faye ahead, drawing his supporters to Dakar's street to celebrate. However, his main rival from the ruling coalition said a runoff will be needed to determine the winner. Millions took part in this day of voting to elect Senegal's fifth president. It followed 3 years of unprecedented political turbulence. So that sparked violent anti-government protests and, of course, boiled support for the opposition. Many people are already celebrating, by the way, in Senegal. I say it's great because it's democracy that's winning. Everyone thought it would never happen for Senegal to hold elections. But we see that of course, on Sunday, the results indeed confirmed it's Senegal that absolutely wins. At least five of the nearly 20 candidates in the race have congratulated Faye as a result, is slowly creeping in. But former Prime Minister Amadou Ba, we see that the ruling coalition candidates said that celebrations are premature. So voters decided on who will replace the ongoing president, Mackay, so who is stepping down after the second term marred by unrest in one of the West African countries, more stable democracy. So the incumbent was not on the ballot for the first time in Senegali history. Like I said, this is not easy for an incumbent president not to happen on a ballot paper. We remember very well during Zimbabwe's elections, this guy was too old. Mugabe. Mugabe was too old, but we saw this guy still on the ballot paper, and we expect more of African presidents to see them on ballot paper, even when they can no longer talk, as long as they are alive. Because this is something which is usual in African countries.
But if even vote for yourself and talk like so nobody can. They at times it's just rubbing the saliva.
So the Senegalese go to the polls yesterday to elect a new president in totally unpredictable rest after the 3 years of turmoil and political crisis. So some 7.3 million voters are registered in West African nation were two favorites who emerged. So the ruling coalition former Prime Minister Amadou Ba and the anti-establishment candidate Bosur Diomaye Faye. So they were both once tax inspectors, but now appear to have little in common. But so aged 62, but is of course aged 62, offering continuity, while the 43-year-old Faye promises profound changes and left-wing pan-Africanism. Both say they will claim the first round victory, but the second round looks probable with, of course, 15 other candidates in the field, including Sori Woman, at the date yet to be decided. Former Dhaka Mayor Khalifa Self, 68, is considered to have outside chance. The eventual winner will be tasked with steering traditional stable Senegal out of its recent troubles and managing revenues from oil and gas reserves that are shortly to start production. So voting will end, of course, at So voting will end at, of course, at 6, and provisional results could be known overnight. So the first official results are expected during this week. So Senegal has traditionally been considered as a beacon of democracy and stability in the Cool region. The Russia is strengthening its influence over these countries, these West African countries. But we see that workers' campaign, hundreds of observers will be out representing civil societies, the African Union, the ECOWAS regional group, and the European Union. All these countries, they are in, of course, Senegal to observe that what's going on in, of course, Senegal. We see that. A Rukia's campaign, lasting just 2 weeks after being shortened, ordered a democratic last-minute delay to the election date originally scheduled for February 25th. So, President Mackay's intervention to delay the presidential vote sparked unrest that left 4 people dead. Sale, who won praise abroad last year by renouncing the possible third term bid, said he called off the vote over fear it would not go smoothly. So, after weeks of political crisis, the country's top constitutional body stepped in and forced him to rest the day to March 24th, and what was yesterday when they had elections. Despite of the clashing with the Muslim fasting month of Ramadan, Sel had picked would be a success of Amuduba, had positioned himself as the last vision against the bandits, and urged people to vote for the experience and competence instead of entrusting the reins of the country to adventurers. Um, eh? Adventure, no, So we need, of course, to consolidate what we have. We need to go even faster and further. It was, of course, bold to create 1 million jobs in 5 years. I don't know. Whenever these people are stepping in for presidency, there are a lot of things they promise Africa. Is it because they think Africans are too stupid? I remember Bobby Wine once promised security people 1 million police. Pay salary, pay they give you pay of every month 1 million. Promise those policemen one. I don't know whether these people think deep when you are promising these things because the people you're promising they are not even policemen. In fact, the voting number for people is bigger than the policemen. I don't know whether they think critical about all these promises they make. But of course, you will also face the dark side as a legacy, which includes mass arrest and the eventual persistent poverty in Senegal, with 20% of unemployed and thousands setting off perilous voyage on the coast of each year. When we talk about the radical reform, the recent unrest in Senegal was the latest chapter in episodes of violence since 2021, triggered partly by the standoff between the firebrand opposition figurehead Osman Songo and the state. So economic and social tensions, as well as concerns that Sale would run for a third term, also fueled the unrest that left dozens killed and hundreds arrested. So the elections, the election has also been fired up by rapidly passed amnesty law that led to the march 14th release from the of opposition prison of opposition leaders Faye and charismatic Sonko. These opposition, for me, I guess these leaders in Senegal, they are winning. People are looking at them, people are giving them sympathy just because they are from prison. Kitegeera, because these people have ever been in Marquez government, what did they do? Okitegeera. So although Faye is Sonko's deputy, is only on the ballot because Sonko has been barred from standing in uh, voters' eye. They are packaged. They are a package deal. So the duo have attacked Ba as the greatest danger facing Senegal today. They have also questioned where his wealth came from, branding him a billionaire civil servant who will who will be the president of foreign countries. So Faye pledged on Friday last week to bring radical reform to Senegal to renegotiate mining, oil, and gas defense contracts, while the same time offering assurances to foreign investors. Henceforth, we will be a sovereign state, independent. We will work with, of course, everyone, but in win-win partnership. He said that the pair are hoping to, of course, harness Sonko's charisma and popular appeal in court where half of the population is under 20. So Sonko has grown a passionate following with the Senegalese youth, just like Bobby Wine, through his rhetoric on sovereignty as well as the attacks on allies, multinationals, and colonial ruler France. So a lot of people have warned the potential is to player of course on Sunday and after, particularly if Baz wins is the first round. So all Fayez fails to reach the second. We shall see what's going to, of course, happen. Uh, we shall see what is going to happen. We see that Senegal's sovereign dollar bonds reversed losses, going from the worst performers of the day in, of course, the margin markets to the best, as investors bet on the West African countries getting the stable government of Boswell by toning down some of the extreme policy measures he had outlined during the campaign. Kitegeera. So, uh, uh, let's hope something that is going. Let's hope for good from these people because they have brought out a lot of manifestos. They have promised a lot of people in of course, Senegal, these presidential candidates, amid this Mackay stepping down out of this election. So when we look at the initial apprehension of the opposition win has sent markets weaker in early trade, but that will of course reverse the yield on bonds due to the 2048 fell 13 basis points to the 9.68% by the, of course, in London with the price equivalent. So we see that Faye was named the main opposition presidential candidate after its firebrand leader Sonko was disqualified from ruling after he was convicted of libel. We see that a former tax inspector, Faye, has never held public office. His campaign legs, of course, includes we see that it includes we see that Faye has never held a public office. His key campaign flags include negotiating mining and energy contracts with private firms, pushing for reform on how the regional currency, the CFA franc, is managed, and the negotiating public debt and concerning private debt. So, initial market apprehension over Faye's potential presidency was, of course, easing. Said that Africa, we see that Sonko and Faye have toned down on some of the economic changes initially proposed. So Faye's camp and Sonko is largely unknown quantity for the investor community, meaning that whatever comments they make, an economic policy could move the market. So we see that Faye would likely go back on the more radical proposals and certainty about economic policy was likely to remain in the near term until the new president's economic team had been announced. So this would keep euro bond uh, yields elevated. So we see that a lot of people they're having a way of weighing, of course, these presidential elections and how these people have put down their manifestos. So people are putting a keen eye on this. That there is a way they are looking at politics in Senegal in a different way. So people in Senegal, like I said, have been voting for new president in a delayed elections after the political unrest. So the long queue of voters witnessed across the country as they flocked to choose from the 17 presidential candidates. So, presidential candidates. So after, of course, some people voted, outgoing President Make warned, of course, candidates against the making of premature claims of victory. So the elections had been due to take place last month, but Mr. Make postponed it, triggering deadly opposition protests and democratic crises. So polling stations were closed after the largely calm day of voting. Most people returning home to prepare their fast, and of course, which happens at the sunset during the Muslim fasting of Ramadan. So, prisoner attacks on Senegal here apparent. So, Africa Daily Podcast can there be peaceful transition, of course, in of course. Senegal. So about we have seen West African countries, even West Africa. This is a fragile place. Uh, West Africa is so fragile. Very many people think West Africa now is one of the countries that are experiencing instabilities. One of the countries that are experiencing, of course, coups in the recent years and recent months. We have seen a lot of coups. So, amid this, the elections that we are seeing today in of course Senegal, the ongoing elections we are seeing. Are we going to experience a peace transition? That peace transition of power in Senegal. Are we hoping for good? Are we hoping for good in Senegal? Because according to the presidents, the presidents we have seen in the last months and the last years, we have seen a lot of course, coups, instabilities, but it is something which is actually not usual in African countries. However, we would like to have such things happen in Africa. Seeing some presidents stepping out really from elections of a country and seeing other people are coming in for elections. So this is something that, of course, that is good in Africa. So presidential elections are held on 24th yesterday. Senegal's Tomoye running in place of Osman Sonko and Amadou Ba, the candidate of the ruling party of the BBY, we see are considered the favorites to become the next president of Senegal. So incumbent President Mackay is standing down after the 2 terms in office. So so previously, they were originally scheduled for 25th February. I said in this area, but were postponed indefinitely by the decree of Mackay on 3rd February, and then by the National Assembly to the 15th December. On 5th February, the Senegalese Constitutional Council overturned the postponed and ordered elections to proceed as soon as possible, with the government subsequently setting a new election date for the 24th March after the national dialogue in the end of February was ruled as unconstitutional. A potential second round would be, of course, held in the end of March. So, several parties, when we look at politics and elections in Senegal, we see that several parties have announced their intent to run for the office in 2024, but they must first receive sufficient support from the general public to pass the sponsorship stage. So any presidential candidate that has been involved in these elections uh, could of course must receive between 0.8% and 1% of the electoral signatures, which they did. So these signatures must be collected with a minimum of 2,000 sponsorships in each of the minimum even seven of the Senegal's 14 regions. So candidates can also have the option of receiving sponsorship from at least 13 members of the National Assembly, so or 120 mayors and heads of the regional council. So a deposit of 30 million CFA francs must be also be paid by candidates at the CCS DCO consignation. So on 17th February 2023, the day before the date was revealed for the upcoming elections, Senegalese opposition candidate Ousmane Sonko was forcibly taken from his vehicle in a midst of the rallies outside Dakar courthouse where his trial was taking place. So Sonko was in court as part of the civil lawsuit against him by the Senegal's tourism minister for defamation and public insult. So on 3rd July, following the series of protests regarding Sonko's conviction for immoral behavior in a separate case, incumbent President Maker stated that he would not seek re-election for the third term. So registrations for the candidacy opened on, of course, October last year and ended on 26th December last year. So pre-campaign began on January 5th this year, while the campaign period was set to start on 4th February this year, with first round taking place on 25th January. So on July 4th, we see that Osman Sonko was announced as the presidential candidate for the party. Sonko's eligibility as a candidate was unclear due to him receiving 2-year prison sentence in June 2023, rendering him ineligible to run according to some legal experts. Although it was noted that he had not exhausted his appeals to the Supreme Court, which could reverse his sentence. So, on 3rd July, Pastif was ordered dissolved by the Senegalese government, while Sonko undertook a month-long hunger strike in protest over the political situation. In September, McCain nominated the Prime Minister Amadou Ba as the candidate for the ruling Alliance for the Republic, and of course, on 19th November, Pastif designated its Secretary General, Costa Faye, as the candidate for the elections. Faye had been in prison since 2023 April, when, of course, he was arrested for criticizing the conduct of Sonko's defamation trial on social media. In December, a court ordered Sonko's restatement to the voters list and allowed him to, of course, file his candidacy. A total of 93 people registered to run for president, for president before Senegal's Constitutional Council. before the constitution, over 93 people registered to run the president before Senegal's constitutional council. So the list of candidates was narrowed down as the board they examined the sponsorship of would be candidates until 10th January 2024 before moving to the scrutinize other relevant documents. Many candidates were rejected due to missing documents, insufficient insufficient sponsors supporting more than one candidate, including former prime minister, were rejected due to missing documents, insufficient sponsors, and of course, including Aminata Tocha and of course Sheikh Abjabi. These people are having French names, as well as Marquez's brother-in-law Adama Faye. This prompted 27 other candidates to collectively criticize the sponsorship contra whatever maziwa kyabo. Ate nga byankulira kimpete nako. Ate kulira
Tokabuyisemu kyokka.
wakyabo. In January 2024, we see that um, candidates FEMO filed a complaint against the fellow candidate Karim Wade, being a dual French Senegalese nationality, Wade and the former minister and the son of the former president Wade. So subsequently renounced his French, of course, citizenship at the same time. The National Assembly created a commission of inquiry responsible for monitoring the electoral process. On 20th January this year, the Senegalese Constitutional Council published the final list of candidates for the presidential elections. So it was made up of over 20 candidates, including former Prime Minister Idrissa Saka, and of course Mohamed Abdallah Dione, and former Interior Minister Alai. Uh, the women were also declared to run, namely as of course Rose Wadini and entrepreneur Anita Babaka. So the head of one of the country's largest food manufacturers and of course poultry farms, Sedima, both are the first women to run the presidential since 2012. So the candidacies of Osman Sonko and Karim Wadi were not validated, with the council citing Sonko's 6-month suspended sentence to defamation that was upheld by Senegalese Supreme Court on 4th January, and Wade's renunciation of his French citizenship being not, of course, retroactive, and his sworn National Assembly over Wade's and other candidates' exclusion, which of course lasted until 18th February, when it was ended by the Senegalese government citing the opening of the judicial investigation over the matter. On of course 28th January, we see that Sonko released a video on social media formally recognizing Faye as his replacement in his election. So on 19th February, Rose Wadini renounced her candidacy following the controversy over her dual Franco-Senegalese nationality. So postponement, we see that Mackay postponed elections in Senegal. So on February 3rd, hours before campaign was about to start, President Merkel ordered the indefinite postponement of the elections, citing a parliamentary investigation into two judges of the Constitutional Court over their integrity with regards to the electoral processes that was launched following Karim Wade's exclusion from the elections, and warning of the adverse effects on the credibility of the elections by creating the seeds of pre and post-electoral legitimation. So Mackay also claimed that some of the official candidates held the dual citizenship, that was the first postponement of the presidential elections in the country's history. So the postponement was welcomed by Rwanda's Democratic Party, which requested the postponement, while candidates like PMO who called the postponement high treason. They called postponement the highest treason they have never seen, because Senegalese history. Khalifa Sall announced that they would start their campaign as originally scheduled, while of course two called the decision of sabotage. Abdul Latif, the Secretary General of Marquez government, and of course the concurrent spokesman, announced his resignation, saying that he wanted to have full and complete freedom to defend his political convictions. On February, of course, 4th, police in Dakar fired tear gas to disperse demonstrations, protesting against the postponement of the arrested Amnita Toure and, of course, the candidate Anita Babaka, who had attended one of the rallies after all 19 opposition candidates called, of course, supporters to gather in the streets, including at the major roundabout and in front of the National Assembly. Authorities also suspended and later revoked the broadcasting license of private television channels like Wolf TV in Senegal for its coverage of the protests. So this is something which is common in all African
Mate
countries.
yavuddeko
Mm, yeah.
abaddewo myaka mingi mukwano
So
okuva mu 2012.
calling it an incitement to violence. That is what they called it. They called it after closing this wall of TV. The government calling this private TV. They called it that incitement to violence. So protests were seen chanting Mackay's cell dictator Mackay, and of course establishing makeshift, of course, barricades, burning tires and throwing rock at police. The Ministry of Communication, Telecommunications and Digital Economy shut off mobile internet access on February 5th, citing the dissemination of several hateful and subversive messages, of course, that relied on social networks in context of threats and cause disturbances to the public order. 3 people were killed during protests against the postponement of this election. So, in a heat session on of course February 5th that saw some opposition deputies removed by security forces after they tried to block proceedings. The National Assembly voted in favor of a proposal to formally postpone the elections until 15 December. The measure which needed the support of at least three-fifths of the chambers on 165 deputies to pass was approved by 105 members and rejected by only one MP, and prompted new protests outside the National Assembly that were suppressed by police using tear gas. Two opposition parties subsequently filed an appeal to the Constitutional Council, urging it to direct the continuation of the electoral process. So 14 opposition candidates also filed the appeal to the council, with two other plaguing the challenge postponed in court. 3 lawmakers who were affiliated with PASTEF were of course briefly arrested on 6th February in response to the postponement and subsequent protests. Former Presidents Abdul Dofi and of course were called on Mackay to organize the national dialogue he had announced without delay. They also called on protesters to immediately end, of course, the violence. Um, there is a way there is a way politicians think in African countries that people don't follow up elections. I don't know why. But whenever decisions are made in a parliament, you find like everything that was discussed in the parliament, people outside the people in communities, they discuss all those things that those people discuss. So whenever these people could make decisions, the National Assembly, say parliament here also people could riot outside because of the injustices they saw on whatever they decided.
Well, I'm gonna take you a little bit through the political history, of course, of Senegal. Um, that politics in Senegal takes a place within the framework of presidential democratic republic. Of course, the president of Senegal is the head of the state and the government. The executive power in Senegal is concentrated in the president's hands. Now, while legislative power is technically vested in both the government and the parliament rarely introduces legislation or votes down legislation proposed by the government. Now, similarly, although the judiciary is theoretically independent of the executive and the legislature, the executive branch seems to extend undue control over the judiciary. Now, Senegal is one of the few African states that has never experienced a coup d'etat or exceptionally harsh authoritarianism. Of course, remember that Leopold Senghar, the first president after independence, resigned in, of course, 1981, handing over the office to president of his prime minister, Abdul Diouf. The present president, the other previous president, who actually is still, because he has resigned, but the office hasn't been occupied as of now, though he has resigned. That is Mackay. So that means Senegal has not had a lot of presidents since its independent. We see that so far, Mackay, of course, Mackay Sall was elected in a competitive democratic election that was around March 2012. And of course, he was again re elected in 2019. Senegal has a reputation for transparency in government operations at the level of economic corruption that has damaged the development of the economies in other parts of the world is very low. Now, today, Senegal, of course, has a democratic political culture, being part of one of the most successful democratic transition in Africa. And and that's why, by the way, I guess we see such a tremendous change within the Senegal political system at that time. But for now, we are still seeing that as Mackay has stepped down the presidential seat. The elections are still going on, though of course we know who is still taking lead of the votes, and people are already declaring the winner, though the Electoral Commission still feels like there is still a lot, and maybe something can change. The opposition party is still taking lead, so we hope to see a change in of course Senegal soon. There is always one issue when it comes to Africa's politics. Innocent was asking me like, how come Africans usually, the opposition parties, the African opposition parties, usually gain a lot of favor um, it's like when you're playing a game and you know your opponent too well. Because apart from practicals, the opposition parties, the best thing they can do is to convince, to talk. So if you are definitely talking about what is in the mind of the people, whether you are so sure that you're going to, of course, make it or something else, the people still believe that you really understand them. Politics, we've seen a lot of people who come into power and end up doing actually the same as those who have left power, because at the end of the day, the person who is controlling the entire political system is the same person. The same system is governed by the same faces throughout the different faces of different political leaders. The people behind this leadership are usually the same. So that's why it's very hard to see change. And of course, Senegal has always laid that example. It is one of the countries in Africa that has never experienced a coup d'etat, and people just decide to leave power. Mackay has been a president since 2012, so he has been there for two terms because he was re-elected, and this time he said he's not coming for a second term. And of course, Senegal celebrates to see another vibrant young Mutore.
Hmm?
Yego
Yeah.
Faye. Baba mu
1988.
1980.
She has 44 years.
So it's 44 years. Um, so they're also celebrating probably, though we haven't, of course, they haven't declared him a winner yet, but he's still taking the lead. I'm seeing a lot of young people coming into Africa's leadership. We've been talking about young people taking positions, and I hope this time we are not disappointed, because they are really indeed taking positions. If you look back in the history of Senegal, people have been in power for some time. Actually, Senegal has had only, now if this one comes in on our president wakuna,
Kutani.
ono aliwo taba wakuna,
Wanalika
Maka yabadde wakusatu.
wakuna.
Hey,
Wakuna ddaka wakutani.
are you sure?
Yeah, ali wakutani.
So since they gained the independence at that time, ate wano ndabyewo bannabukka. At that time, Senegal, though they also experienced challenges of poverty, Senegal experiences, by the way, high levels of poverty, high levels of youth unemployment. But most Senegalese by the international.
Mm.
And this is always wrapped up by the kind of cultural system that is practiced in Senegal. A lot of Senegalese is a Inamu Muslims bunch. It has a big Islamic society, and the cultures are a little bit diverse. Yeah, but we know that Senegal is a vibrant West African nation that faces a mix of opportunities and challenges. But we know that its economic constraints, of course, are a little bit challenging. We have Senegal as a country, it has insufficient competition. Senegal grapples with limited competition in various sectors, hindering the innovation and the growth. This is like what I was trying to say. Abantu abatasoma nnyo. There is no a big percentage of educated people in Senegal. Yeah, people are educated, but not to a huge number compared to other African countries, because most of these people still follow the Sharia laws. And when you look at the Islamic Sharia laws, education isn't something that they take as an important thing. More especially this kind of education that we are attaining. All right, you can still look at the situation in Nigeria with the Boko Haram. Apparently, they also don't believe, the Boko Harams don't believe in this education system, and it's an Islamic terrorist group. So, Senegal also experiences inadequate private financing. We know that the private sector lacks robust financing options, impacting, of course, investment and expansion. We know that ensuring a fair tax collection remains a challenge in this very country, which affects revenue generation for public services. Senegal has always, by the way, we don't see a coup d'etat in Senegal, or we don't see a lot of people struggling for power in Senegal, but we have seen a lot of demonstrations in Senegal where people are, where the youth are expressing their dissatisfaction, and their desire to see something different, the desire for them to, of course, get those the employment. And when it comes to Dakar, it's like Dakar has actually become one of the centers that is apparently collecting a bigger population of people trying to travel, to outside Africa. And so you find that there are lots. That place has like a lot of, more especially West Africans, Nigerians, people from Cameroon, different people actually from different places of West Africa decide to, of course, who want to travel outside Africa by sea, set off usually from Dakar. So from the airport over there, sorry, from the port over that side. So a lot of people have not had the advantage of of traveling or sailing, but because some of them are educated, they end up settling in Senegal, which has caused a big, of course, challenge to the Senegalese, given the fact that there is no big, given the fact that there is no, of course, big competition within the various sectors. And so people come in, instead of the natives or the people of Senegal getting these creative or innovative, chances of jobs and others. We see that people like Nigerians, Cameroonians who are educated end up, of course, working in these sectors and having these kind of opportunities compared to the Senegalese people. Now we know that Senegal needs an to optimize its social spending to address critical needs effectively. Uh, we have a very constrained limit private sector development and job creation. One thing we should really have in mind is that Senegal is a country that has that is cultural. Senegalese, as Senegalese, they live in extremely extended families. When we are looking at a community that has extended families where you find mom, a father is living with his wife, and just close by there is his brothers and also his wife, and just on the left there is his mother and also his dad. You can understand the kind of society these people are living in. Uh, this kind of societies that is in Senegal actually is still, as they practice that. I don't know how to call that, whether I should call it Muslim culture or Arabic culture. Um, where people although the African culture system, yeah, we used to have people live that extended kind of system, but in Senegal it is that kind of Muslim thing, all right. And the rate at which young girls are getting married is also extremely very high. And I think this has everything to do with the religion entanglement with culture in of course Senegal. Now, when you look at a mother, of course, not a mother in a country like Senegal who has not been given a chance to be educated or be taught, and is getting married at a very young and tender age in this kind of generation today. uh, it's a sad one because we are not like in the days of our, great grandparents. Even our grandparents did not live those days, where girls or women are not allowed to attain education. I'm not like saying Senegal doesn't allow this, but the biggest population, it is okay for a girl not to attain this in Senegal, and the biggest population actually doesn't, because it is very important that the Senegalese young women get married at a very, very young age, because this is the Arabic culture or the Islamic religious culture. So you realize a nation that has this a percentage of women who are confined in the house and have not received education, but rather religious education. It takes a turmoil for such kind of, it takes a turmoil on both the mothers of the nation and the generation to come. So I feel like this is the challenge for now that, of course, Senegal is experiencing. We have not had people, of course, having a coup d'etat in Senegal. It does not mean that Senegal is living a very perfect leadership. You can realize that it has a very big economical problem. All right, Senegal is experiencing a large economical problem. Senegal, as a country, is experiencing a huge unemployment rate. And how can the world say that Senegal, as a country, is in a very peaceful
That roll up all the way
environment?
at the end?
Oh, I don't know yet. Let me see. Hold on.
Okay. So, in Senegal, they are deeply woven. In Senegal, traditions are deeply woven into fabric of daily life, reflecting the rich cultural heritage of the West African nations. But of course, we have the Siosan. This Wolof and the Serel concept encompasses history, tradition, and culture. It presents the collective memory and the shared identity of the Senegalese people. um, Theosana emphasizes the importance of preserving culture, practicing and passing, preserving culture practices, and of course, practicing them down through generation. We should remember that Senegal is a predominantly Muslim, but it is also a tolerant, secular state. People of different faith have lived together harmoniously for generations. Now, Islam serves as the potential unifying factor in traditional values like Kasa, which of course is known in English like respect for others, and Tagin, which is known as good manners in English, are widely upheld in Senegal. I will repeat that the biggest Islam religion governs Senegal. Islam religion governs Senegal, and of course, we expect from this we expect to see a wide Islamic culture being spread within the country, and of course, with the intermix of the African traditions, which of course tends to be the daily practices of the Senegalese people. What's the culture? This is also my traditions of Teraj is by the way, Teraj is an Islam, an Arabic word. that is known as hospitality. Now, these are part of their traditions. Regardless of ethnicity, Senegalese people embrace the value of hospitality. The word terrage is used by almost all the country's 12 ethnic groups. Visitors are welcomed warmly, and sharing meals and stories is an integral part of Senegal's culture. Senegal boasts a diverse artistic tradition, including sculpture, painting, textile, pottery, and jewelry. These crafts are deeply rooted in the culture of history of the country. Artistic expression plays a significant role in Senegal life. Now, like many African countries, Senegal has a rich tradition of oral story telling. I think this is something that most of these things are things that are actually, of course, participated or are carried out all over Africa. The oral storytelling, where elders pass down myth, legends, and historical accounts to younger generations. Storytelling serves as a way to preserve cultural knowledge and, of course, values. Let's not forget that Senegal celebrates vibrant performance arts such as music, dance, and theater, where traditional rhythms, colorful costumes, and expressive movements of central to cultural celebration, of course, and ceremonies are usually, of course, carried out. Now, food is an essential part of Senegal's traditions. Dishes like theobagni, a flavorful rice and fish dish, yassa, that is marinated chicken or fish, and they have what they call the bisab. Yeah, that's hibiscus tea. So when you reflect on the country's culinary heritage, um, of course, you must, whoever visits a place like Senegal, of course, must come across these main dishes. There is what people usually call jollof rice. We usually hear Nigerians talk about jollof rice. The Ghanaians will also say jollof stuff. But actually, rice originated from a country that even doesn't hardly talks about jollof rice, and they make it in an entire different way. Last time I was seeing how these people were making, they don't call it jollof rice actually. Ngavyo, azimile. So,
No. Yes,
there's a color.
yes. tebasobola kumuweeza tebasobola
Bamwezi, nabo balirayize, nabo balirayize. Uzayotulayo. Fashion tuzimaze. Tuzimaze kone walala. Tuzimaze ekyo. We should remember that the Ukraine, of course, conflict directly affected Senegal by driving up energy and food prices. I think this one affected most of them. Basirahamwe, because in Ukraine to produce ngano. It's one of the biggest countries that produce wheat. July. So most of these people who practice the Muslim thing because they love eating bread, chapati, um, you know, they were affected very much, and of course Senegal fell, in the same category. So Senegal also experienced that issue. We know that rising energy prices, of course, which impact business, particularly in extractive and manufacturing industries, has been a very huge challenge. To Keith, I can see you're here.
You feeling better? You see me now?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, well that's good. Doing better. You that settled do the whole show Friday. Okay,
Huh?
doing a whole lot, but you probably got sick because you was eating too many crickets.
No,
you, too
no,
many,
no, really.
you eating too many grasshoppers.
No.
So what's going on with you know, you eat them bug, you eat them bugs is going to be a problem.
It is not the season.
I was, I was, how we talking about what's happening in Senegal, guys? The election.
Really.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, wait. I'm listening, guys. I'm not gonna rip the show. I'm listening to you guys. Go ahead.
Ah, okay. I'm gonna take it down. Okay, okay. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. I had to make sure you recover from your bug eating, Maria.
No, I just had malaria for that shit. I don't
Oh,
know.
oh yeah, malaria. You sure yeah, malaria, Maria? Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I've not went
Wow.
to the hospital, so but I think it is. But I
Okay, but
don't know.
you gotta drink some of that drink some of that bitter tea the Nigerians drink. I forgot that herb they use. Drink some of that bitter tea. Whatever it's like, herbs they
Yeah,
got in Africa that stop that. Huh?
the bitter tea comes from the great Shinkona News.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have it here. It's so bitter.
Well, I'm sure you got it too in Africa. I'm just saying. I just know it from what the Nigerians called it. I know it's all over Africa, but Africans call it different names.
Yeah,
Whatever for Africa, yeah.
uh, we call it omluluza.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we call it. I can't take that shit. So bitter.
Okay, so you rather be sick than instead of take it. Why can't you take it?
I, I can't take it from this.
All
I
right,
just
all
can't.
right. Oh,
But I'll
okay,
be fine. My immune system is strong.
okay.
Yeah,
That's what's up. All right.
plain
I'll
water.
be quiet. Let you guys go ahead. I'll be quiet. Let me shut up. Go ahead.
Okay. No, 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 struggle. All right. Thank you for being around. So, like I was telling you guys that we know that inflammatory pressure of Ukraine conflicts and other geopolitical tensions could exacerbate inflation affecting the poor. And of course, Senegal has also been experiencing climatic shocks. Senegal faces climatic related challenges, including floods, droughts, and health hazards, which, of course, are impacting the agriculture sector in Senegal. And when of course Africa is heated, when you hit Africa's agriculture sector, it's like you've hit the entire country at that time, because most of Africa's consumption, or most of the food that Africans consume actually is of course produced within the continent. And Senegal experiences of course it experiences too much of this. And we should also know how Senegal is situated. And they also, so there is a lot of floods that come in and, affect a lot of things and put it out really. At times, there is too much sunshine, by the way. Those people have do you know those the kind at times when I look at Senegal, because as I grew up I used to watch Senegalese dramas, Senegalese movies. Forget this town, all these city I want to be movies. No, I grew up watching a lot of some Senegalese documentary movies. um, documentaries. I'm not about to call a documentary a movie again, but documentaries. So you would realize that their kind of vegetation, I don't know if I'm using the right word, shows that there is too much sunshine in Senegal. There is too much sand and there is sunshine compared to some African places I've been to, by the way. I think which which of course creates big chances of droughts. All right, by no butingo game parks. They don't have like these huge big trees like we see in East Africa. It's like their kind of climate is a little bit slightly different, and I think it's because of the cost. It's because of I think the side of the coast and the water body stuff, but their climate now, and now the climate is extremely changing. And it's not only Senegal's climate, by the way. The entire African climate is changing a little bit, which of course, if it is trying to affect some other countries which have not been as dry and as Senegal, then how about Senegal? And we know that though in Africa we usually experience what we call a tropical climate, and we know that Senegal also experiences a tropical climate, which is characterized by distinct season, that's dry season, which typically runs from October, June, and then we have the rainy season that occurs approximately from late June to early October. And then the rainfall variation in the south, annual rainfall is more abundant. So the region, when you look at the south of Senegal, for them they have abundant rainfall actually, which ranges between 600 and of course 1,400 millimeters per year, and they're saying it's abundant. Bana bekungu baya East Africa, but and then of course, so the part that usually receives abundant rainfall in Senegal is the southern part of Senegal, and usually most of these countries that are near the coast, or let me call them because a country may to be big, all right. I'm giving an example of like of when you go to Zanzibar, um, when you got the coast of Zanzibar, Mombasa, where you realize that these other districts that are close to the coast usually, they have a certain kind, their kind of temperature is a little bit different from the other sides of the country that is a little bit far from the coast. So Senegal having coast, there is always a difference because um, we know that um, in land areas they experience higher temperature than the coast. Now before the tunakuwa kana so happy about it. So and given the, by the way, nowadays with it's not only with the Senegal, but it's like Africa's climate or weather has changed a little bit. Though we are experiencing our the rainfalls that are not, you cannot predict them. Last time we saw the rain come, as we are in a very extremely dry moment, and everybody was like, "Damn!" From nowhere, we saw it raining, and everyone was like, "Okay, maybe it's going to rain," and then it didn't rain. And there are a lot of changes actually that still leave us in a debating position of how Africa still stands when it comes to its close climate. So must we should remember that Senegal usually receives what we call a pre-monsoon heat. Not every African country experiences this. When we talk at the pre-monsoon heat, which is of course around the February to the early June, apparently it takes something like roughly 4 years and a half, 4 to 5 months. Sorry, um, a pre-monsoon time is okay. So when this the inland, of course, heights are around 38 degrees Celsius, and in the south it's always around 43 to 44 degrees Celsius. Of course, in the north, 38 degrees Celsius in the south. The coastal areas, especially Dakar, remained more temperate. At that time, when the monsoon, brother, or some of the monsoon wind, yeah, blowing. We also have,
Arabs, India.
yeah, Arabs. We also have the monsoon wind, the monsoon period at the coast of East Africa, more especially Zanzibar. And those winds can really hit. And I think these are the major reasons why the coast of Senegal, or those parts that are nearing the coast, experience floods because of those kind of winds. I can remember the blowing that just in the rainy season. So, by the way, for those who would wish to visit, of course, Senegal, they say the best time to visit Senegal should be around December to mid February. All right, warm. There is a warm on the coast, hot inland, abundant sunshine, and minimum rain. Nights remain pleasantly cool, and of course, during December to mid Feb, that is a very short time. Yes, the edge. Have you said that that climate is a little bit different? It's a little bit different because they only have December, Jan, and then mid Feb. All right, for that cool kind of their climate is a little bit different for sure. I'm gonna get a guy, my president. Just to say, um, no, it's okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So, like you have been talking about the challenges Senegal is facing now, and among it, like for me, I normally watch about I normally look into manifestos
okay.
different presidents make whenever it's election time. Even these opposition leaders, which people look at too much. Um, Senegal as a country has a long history. The history of Senegal is actually commonly divided into a number of periods. So, encompassing the prehistorical era, the pre-colonial period, colonialism, and the contemporary era. That this is how someone can categorize the history of course Senegal. The earliest evidence of human life is found in the valley of Faleme in the southeast. So, the presence of man in the lower Paleolithic is at listed by the discovery of the stone tools, characteristics of course, terrain, such as the hand access reported, of course, at the tip of Benin and the peninsula of Cape Verde in 1938, or clavers found in the southeast. So there were also found stones shaped by the referee's technique, characteristics of the Middle-Paleolithic, and of course Mediterranean industries, represented by mainly by the scrappers found in the peninsula of Cape Verde, as well as the low middle valleys of Senegal and Fedeme. Some pieces of explicit link to hunting, like those found in, of course, the Tiamesas near the Embo. So, a controversial site that some claim belongs to Upper Polythemic, which uh, of course, other argue in favor of the Neolithic. When we talk about the Neolithic era in Senegambia, the period when humans became hunters, fishermen, and producers, this is when the elaborate objects of ceramics emerged by gray areas remain, although the characteristics of the manifestations of civilization from Neolithic have been identified. Their origin and relationship have not yet fully defined, but we know what can be distinguished is the dig of Cape Manure. This is the Neolithic deposit Manure line. Dakar was discovered in 1940. Basalt rock, including the caramite, were used by making microlithic tools such as axes and planes. So, such tools have been found at Gori at the Magdara Island, indicating the activity of shipbuilding by nearby fishermen. The dig of Bahrain theoretic Abyssinian tools, usually made out of the flint, are present in the dunes of West near the current capital. In addition to access and pottery, there is also a statuette, the theory. So the dig of Cantant Creek, located in the north near the Kaya is lower valley of the Senegal River, gave its name, of course, in Neolithic industry, which mainly uses bone and wood. The deepest is the list of closely sites and monuments of Senegal. So the dig of Felemi, located in southeast of Senegal, has uncovered Neolithic Fremian tools industry that produced polished materials as diverse as sandstone, hematite, shell, quartz, and of course finite. Grinding equipments and pottery from period of were represented at the site. So Neolithic civilization of Senegal River Valley and of course Fario are the least well known due to not always being separated. When you talk about the prehistory of Senegal, in the case of Senegal, the periodization of the prehistory remains controversial. It is often described as the beginning of the age of metalurgy, thus placing it between the first metalworking and the appearance of writing. Other approaches exist, such as that guy of Thramas, that his team in 1980, who left that archaeology from pre-colonial, could be attached to the designation of all that Ahmad Bacon. So we see that, of course, who speaks the historical archaeology from the 4th century, at least for the former Chaka. A variety, we see that on the coast uh, and in the river estuaries of Senegal, Sorom, Gambia, and of course Kalmasi rivers, burial mounds with clusters and shells, often referred to as the medians. 217 of these clusters have been identified in the, of course, Sorom Delta alone. For example, in the Jorm of Sorom, mounds in the Sorom Delta have been dated back as far as 400 BC. So, and part of the Sorom Delta is now a World Heritage Site. Funerary sites of Tumuri were built there during the 8th and 16th century. They are also found in the north near the Saint Louis. So, and at the sanctuary of Casamance, the west is rich in burial mounds of sand that were Wolof refers to Ambana, of course, which translates to graves. A solid gold pictorial of mass of 119 grams has been also discovered near St. Louis. So, in a huge area of about 300 and 3,300, of course, 33,000 kilometers squared, located in the center south around the Gambia. There have been found alignments of boulders known as the stone cycles of Senegambia. So, um, which were placed on the list after after making a lot of research in 2006. So two of these sites are located within the territory of Senegal and the Sine So both located in the Nodu, and of course since has been 52 stone cycles, including the double cycle at one the number over 24, and stones are smaller. There are, of course, stone carved layer and, of course, laterite, Y and A shaped. So, the existence of photo historic rains in the Middle Senegal River Valley was confirmed in the 1970s. So, pottery, perforated ceramics discs, and, of course, ornaments have been, and excavations at the site of Sinotheu Bara and near Matama have been, of course, proved particularly fruitful. They have been revealed, for example, the flow of trans-Saharan trade, distant parts in North Africa. That is prehistoric era. When you talk about kingdoms and empires, of course, in Senegal, the region of the modern Senegal was part of the large region of the Upper Guinea the Upper Guinea by European traders. In the presence of the written sources of monumental reigns in this region, the history of the early centuries of the modern era must be based primarily on archaeological excavation. So, the writings of the early geographers and travelers written in Arabic and data derived from oral tradition, combining these data suggests that Senegal was first written in Arabic and data derived from oral tradition. Combining these data suggests that Senegal was first populated from the north and east in several waves of migration. So, the last being that of the Wolof and of the Fulani and the Sierra. Africanists, of course, suggest that Senegambian place names indicate that the earliest inhabitants might been identified most closely with one of the several related groups. So, Baronek Kasaga, of course, the father and to these were added Sarah, who moved southwards during the first Meridian AD from Senegal River, and of course, many speaking peoples. So, who arrived later still from the east. Parable descendants of Bafa were pushed southwards by the Baba dynasty. So, before before the arrival of European settlers, ani omuzukusiza ati nambadde musika ekitanda ayinza obutazuukuka
sinasukako kitanda sinayingirako na musango
kiki ekirwadde kibi eh?
tewali muntu assa kitanda.
So, before the arrival of European settlers, the history of Saharan region is mainly characterized by consolidation of settlements in large state entities. The Ghana Empire and the Mali Empire and the Songhai Empire, the cores of these great empires were located on the territory of the current Republic of Mali. So, current day Senegal occupied by of course peripheral positions. The earliest of these empires is the Ghana probably founded in the first millennium of the Seneca, and whose animist population subsisted by the agriculture and trade across the Sahara, including gold, salt, and cloth. Its area of influence slowly spread to regions between the river valley and, of course, Senegal and Niger. A contemporary empire of course, Ghana, but less extensive. The kingdom of Taka was its vassal. Ghana and Taka fought a Toro. It existed in 19th century. Is attested by Arabic manuscripts. The formation of the state may have taken place in the influx of the Fulani from. Do you know that this Fulani actually moved almost the entire Africa?
West Africa.
Actually, almost the entire Africa.
Babi,
Not even West Africa.
Fulani bantu
They
babi.
keep on moving everywhere, and even up to now,
Babi.
they keep on moving everywhere. Everywhere the
Assassinated.
Fulanis. Mhm.
Nari
The
moso.
Union. What was that? The Union.
Hende, kulia bizo mwana tatiana.
Yes, I got you.
Mbadi. Wakatola wajirisa.
So, and go ahead from me. So the formation of the state may have taken place as an influx of the planning from, of course, the east, from the east, settled in the Senegal Valley. So we see that a lot of people are suggesting that the Taka was from. We see that a lot of people are suggesting that
Yeah.
the TAC was formed through the interaction of the Berbers from the Sahara. Wait, watch out. 70s. Was formed. Uh, we see that the two other major political entities were founded and grew during the 13th and the 14th century. The Mali Empire and the Jorof Empire, which became, of course, the vassal of the first in its heyday. So, originating from the Madinka invasion in Mali, continued to expand, encompassing the first eastern Senegal and later almost all the present territory founded in the 14th century by possibly mythical chief of the war of Antiolita Mufaka Chief. The Indian Olava de Bulininga, who was a sailor of the war. So which is also founded among the Jorof expanded its dominance in small chiefdoms south of Senegal River, bringing together the Segambia, to which gave to religious and social unity in Senegal, which collapsed, of course, in 1950. The Jorof Empire, these are empires that, of course, existed in in Senegal. The Jorof Empire was founded by the voluntary confederations of states. It was not only an empire built in military conquest, in spite of what word empires implies. The Serara tradition of Sain attests the kingdom of Sain never paid tribute to the Indiani Andaye, nor to any member of his, of course, descendants that ruled Jorof. We see that the Waro, Taka, Kayo, and, of course, the Barol recognized the hegemony of the Jorof and paid tribute. It went on to state that the Indiani himself Wall was pivotal in founding this empire. It was he nominated Indiana and also called other states to join this.
Hekera.
Which they did. So the empire headed by Indiani who took residence at Jorof. It is for this reason that, of course, a lot of people proposed that the empire was more likely voluntarily confederacy and the empire built on military conquest, just like those empires long time back used to base their conquest. So the arrival of Europeans engendered autonomy of small kingdoms which were under influence of Europe, less dependent on trans-Saharan trade with the new shipping lanes. So they turned more readily to trade with the New World, who are the Europeans by then. The deadline of these kingdoms can be explained by internal rivalries, then by the arrival of Europeans, who organized the mass exodus of young Africans to Europe. Disease, wars, epidemics, and famine affiliated the people along the Atlantic slave trade in exchange for weapons and manufactured goods. Under the influence of Islam, these kingdoms were transformed, and marabouts played an increasing role. Together.
Mm.
So, yeah,
So
Pharaoh
what they
became.
can so what they can do that.
According to several ancient sources, we see that, including the occasions by the Dictionaria, we see that in the first French settlement in Senegal dates back in the deep millennia of in the 14th century. Flattering for Norman sailors, this argument gives precedence also to the idea of precedence of French presence in the region, but it is not confirmed by the subsequent work. In the mid-15th century, several European nations reached the coast of West Africa, vested successfully and simultaneously by the Portuguese, the Dutch, the English, and the French Europeans. The first settlement along the coast on his land in the mouths of rivers and then little further upstream. They opened trading posts and engaged in the trade. So, a term which, under the ancient regime, means any type of trade. We see that, and not necessarily or only the slave trade, although this infamous traffic, it was called the end of the 18th century, was indeed at the heart of the new economic order controlled by the powerful companies in privilege. So the Portuguese navigators, we see that they encouraged by Henry the Navigator, and always in search of the passage to India, and known for getting gold and slaves. Portuguese explorers explored the African coast and ventured still further south. So, in of course 1444, we see that almost went off the mouth of Senegal River to reach the westernmost point of Africa, because Cape Verde, before it was Cape Verde or Cape Verde.
Mm.
So, because of the lush vegetation seen there, he also reached the island of Gold, referred to by inhabitants as but he called the Palma of Islands, which is called the Islam of Palms. So the Portuguese did not settle there permanently, but they used the site for landing and engaging in commerce in the region. They, mm,
Mm. The one who was young. Mm. Of course, Senegal's presidential election, of course, younger candidates takes the lead in tightly contested race.
Yeah,
The guy is young
43
and
years.
very handsome man.
Eh,
He has
Bobby,
the
Bobby, Bobby.
melanin is popping so strong.
Bobby, Bobby, Bobby.
He doesn't look like a drug use.
Chakula.
Dakar. Of course, as Senegalese voters headed to the polls in a tightly contested presidential elections that has, of course, captured the nation's attention. And of course, stakes are high as the country grapples with the political tensions and seek a potential change in leadership. 19 contenders Of course, a total number of 19 contenders are trying to succeed President Makar Sahel. And of course, the incumbent, barren by the constitution from seeking a third term, is not on the ballot
Yeah,
for the first time in
Mackay.
Senegal's history. So apparently, it wasn't his will. Of course, it wasn't his will but of course, the constitution could not allow him to contest again. Now, the president Sal's regime has implemented mm, investor-friendly policies, but of course has struggled to elevate the economic hardship. Senegal, of course, Senegal has been going through. We know that Senegal has been having unstable um, um, economy for some time. But we should remember that Senegal's democracy is poised to become an oil and gas producer. Now, the elections outcome could signal the end, of course, of another the previous era that we've had. Of course, a younger candidate imagine as stop doing stop doing that. Stop doing that. you know you know that early tallies show that Basirao Diomaye Faye, a younger candidate, is leading the race. Faye, co-creator of the now dissolved Pastef Party, gained momentum after being detained almost a year ago. His campaign slogan is "The Moye is Sonko," resonates with the voters, of course, seeking change. We know that we've had still other contestants or contendants as Amadou Ba, the ruling coalition candidate, a former prime minister. We also had Khalifa Sall, a former Dakar mayor. Of course, no relation to the ongoing outgoing president, though they have the same name, so people shouldn't say they are related. They just share the same name, Sayal, but they are not related. We also had the Anta Babakar Ngom. This was the only woman running, promising economic constructuring. Then we shouldn't forget Adrissa Seck. He was second in 2019 elections, by the way. We know that about 7.3 million people are registered to vote, and in Dakar, voters lined up patiently, eager for change. The fishermen, um, the farmers, the schoolgoers, and apparently everyone decided that they're going to bring change in Senegal, and we are looking forward to that change. By the way, he's still taking lead until now, and which of course signals probably his win, I should say. He's a very young man. I think he made 44 years today. Yeah, today was his birthday. Hmm. So he's Aries. He was born in the same month with me. He was about to celebrate his birthday on that same day with me, just 2 days ahead. Right. So today he made 44 years. He's he looks to be so very energetic, and maybe we shall share his photos in the groups, sorry, on our WhatsApp group. But he looks so energetic and very young, and I'm looking forward to seeing this kind of young people on the of course, on the pages of Africa's, of course, taking lead. Oh, dear mosquito. Oh, My birthday was when? Today is when? 27. Not yet.
Yes, 25th.
25th. Yeah, 2 days ago. My birthday is usually on the 23rd. So approximately, maybe even this guy was born on the 23rd, but he's forgetting. Don't you think?
Possibly.
Hello, General Mosquito. Thank you for coming through. So, this young, vibrant, handsome man, of course, taking lead in elections of Senegal. We are looking forward to having a new, vibrant face of Africa and, of course, face of Senegal's politics. For sees, of course, Ibrahim Tori. And by the way, these are not the young leaders we have. We've been having some young leaders, but they've not been so shouting. We've had some other young leaders of recent. I think Africa is taking a new change. I don't know the young leader who will come for Uganda.
Yeah.
Mm,
What is
Koko. I don't know. Going up enough for president.
I don't know that.
So for when is Uganda going to get young
By
leaders?
the way, nagendera eri Masaka muhoozi yali atagenda.
Abantu balowooza zoolozoola oyo dduuti.
Zola.
Naye si zoolo bwe batyo bajja omuvaako nno ababbi. Hey, so we are seeing this other. We are waiting to see how Africa is going to take. For you guys, you can Google his image, and of course, we know that this is the youngest president in the history of Senegal. Senegal has not been having young people, so this is the youngest president. And well, congratulations to this young, of course, Senegalese president as of now, who is, of course, 44 years today. So today is apparently his birthday. And congratulations once again for Senegal for having this young, though they haven't, of course, declared him. Basirao, he's called Basirao Diomaye Faye as the president of course, Senegal. Congratulations, congratulations. It is always, I don't know how, I'm always excited when I see young people taking lead. For a very long time, we've had these old people from when. It's not that old people are bad, right? I'm not like trying to say, or it's not like saying, oh, people are bad or stuff, they shouldn't do stuff. But we've been having them for a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very vibrant.
So,
Nature money na have a little chickens.
so few heard of him a year ago, and now he's set to become the president. Faye's extraordinary rise caps a re-rocaster period in Senegalese politics uh, that caught many off guard. Months in jail
It
alongside
also put him off.
alive.
I
Yeah,
know he didn't.
months,
He didn't
months
like believe that he could.
months in jail alongside allies of the ally of the kingmaker Sonko ended suddenly with the pair released a week before the president. You know, this guy actually, yes, it was in his plan to be like to go in for presidential elections.
People call
But there
him
is this
Mr.
guy,
Clean.
but there is this Sonko guy, Usman.
Mm.
Like he was a powerful political opposition leader. Like people trusted in Senegal. He was arrested, and of course, never he was refused to, of course, to go in for elections for presidential elections. Then he endorsed this man. He endorsed this man, and of course, what do you call it? He endorsed this young man, and of course, pronounced that of course Faye is going to repress him on his social media platforms.
Mm.
This Sonko guy, so he knows this man, and that's why we see him because they allied with Sonko. We see that now Mr. Kidding has his nickname. He must go to work on sweeping reforms he has promised. We see that the methodical and modest awards are often used to describe a 44-year-old tax collector. So Mr. Fayez fond recalls his rural, his rural, his rural what?
Someone else out left down the devil.
His
That
rural.
is.
Bilenga kigambo kuno. Bilenga kigambo kuno. Kunda. Kunda. His rural upbringing of the India Ganio, which he says he returns every Sunday to work the land. So his love and respect for village life is matched by, of course, deep distrust of Senegal's elites and establishing politics. So he's never been a minister and wasn't a statesman by his so critics question his lack of experience. But from Faye's point of view, the insiders who have, of course, run the countries since 1960 have made some catastrophic failures. Fighting poverty, injustice, and corruption are top of Mr. Faye's agenda. While working as a treasury, he and Mr. Sonko, who he allied with, created a union task force to tackle graft. Gas, oil, fishing, and defense deals must also be negotiated to, of course, better serve the Senegalese people. So he's ushering in an era of sovereignty and rupture, as opposed to, of course, more of the same he had told voters. That is especially true of lies to France. Hmm?
Mm-hmm.
True of ties to France. So Senegal's president-elect says he will drop the much criticized CFK, of course, franc currency. Do you know that we have a lot of African countries using franc currency?
What was it? The French
Yeah,
colonized
even in
territory.
Rwanda. Amafaranga.
Amafarang.
So, which is pegged to the euro and backed by former colonial power France. So, Mr. Faye want to replace it with the new Senegalese and regional East African currency, although this will not be easy. He will have to deal with the reality of the budget to begin with, but I see that he has a lot of ambition.
Which is okay.
So strengthening the judicial independence and creating jobs for Senegal's large young population are also key priorities for Mr. Faye. So neither of which President Market paid much attention to, and it caught up with him. Check it out.
Mm-hmm.
So we see that only political heavyweight to have thrown her support behind the 44-year-old former president. Wade did he, of course, did the same just 2 days before Sunday's vote. So it is a remarkable turnaround for Mr. Faye, who spent the last 11 months in prison on charges of insaturation and many more. I think I'll take out Rwanda. Very block is so than more of Mr. Sonko said government. You see that both men, Sonko and of course Faye, founded the disbanded Pacific Party. Both men are tax collectors, Sonko and Faye, and both men found themselves jailed last year on charges they were said were politically motivated. So Mr. Sonko ended up being convicted for two offenses, which meant he was barred from election. So Mr. Fayez stepped in on behalf of Mr. Sonko. The other guy was that big opposition leader
Mm.
before this guy. So the other guy endorsed this guy. So this
So the
has
votes were the joint votes.
they made an
The
alliance
supporters of Sonko,
and this
and
guy.
then it was a joint
So,
support.
so this had led criticism that Mr. Faye is merely president by default. So, not so. So, a lot of people say that maybe they will establish a tandem and break away from the hyper presidential model of having all the powerful head of state. So, Sonko is, of course, the uncontested leader who's 36 an icon even, but the two have had a dynamic of complicity and collusion. So once a time, Mr. Faye wanted nothing to do with politics. you know, so
Mm.
it never crossed my. The guy said it never crossed my mind. He said in 2019 while recording his childhood. Namuleka, one of Mr.
Bukudde bukola ki ku Tracy? Byonna bigoba biri mu
One of Mr. Faye's heroes is the last Senegalese historian Chick under Diop, who work is seen as who is seen as a precursor to the Afroism. Both are seen as the left-wing cheerleaders of the Pan-Africanism. We see that as early as the results came in today, showing Mr. Faye was set for victory. People in the capital of Dakar celebrated by hawking cars, horns, and of course singing to loud music. So the reaction of it from international markets were less jubilant, with the Senegalese dollar bonds falling to their lowest level in 5 months. So Richard's news agency reports that investors are concerned that Mr. Faye's presidency may window down the country's business-friendly policies because the elections was originally due to last month, but of course, like we talked about this, that Mr. McKay, like the incumbent, see the history, the incumbent, the former president of Senegal, postponed it just hours before the campaigning was set to begin, triggering deadly opposition protests and democratic crisis. So most candidates had very little time to prepare once the new election date was set. But Mr. Faye had just over a week after being freed from jail. They were the sleeper then. So despite of the shortened campaign period, Senegal citizens were adamant they would turn out and use of course, their vote. Senegal is in the process of confirming the democracies can self-correct and come out stronger and more resilient. And the true test of Senegalese killing up guy has only just begun. So that is Senegal. Senegal, and that is the Faye guy.
Those are all good.
Watching live from South Africa.
Mandela, Mandela, thank you for coming through. Kilwemhe. They're coming out. You're trying to get them South Africa, man, you baby. Thank you for joining our live, and of course, thank you for watching and supporting Blackwood Fire Network. You're watching live from Facebook. Okay, then.
Living watching.
That's all. Now watching it. Come on. So we have actually seen a lot of African leaders, a lot of young leaders coming into Africa's politics, but tuloza mulina kyempe ekibintuddemu ekyo kyobumanya ngwe Ingira studio.
Ndize ndirayibuze.
Ngenda kuyingirira muno.
Eh?
Ngenda kuyingirira omwo. Ekisiigirize kyange kiraga nvundire buto.
Kiragira naawe. Oyingira bw'obuze ku kyogera.
Kuziirira n'okusiiriza essaawa zino nga zijja. Era nnyirira bw'obuze kukyogera. Kale maama. Maazi waakanjogera.
Kukwali. Yokugira mbitooke.
Aku Senegal. Senegal.
Buli wayo bamugamba.
Presidential number one. Political positions. We know that Faye wants to implement, of course, a monetary reform to finance the economic of Senegal, removing the CFA, of course, franc, which of course is supported or backed up by the French currency. Now, in his program, he states we will carry out monetary reform that will allow our country to have its own currency. He also added in a press conference that he believes there is no sovereignty if there is no monetary sovereignty. Now, after concern from foreign investors, he walked back the promise, of course, in March 2023, saying Senegal will seek to implement a reform of the CFA franc at the regional level first, and if that fails, we will consider creating a national
I
currency.
would like to ask you this. Like, do these countries that still have like currencies that are not of those countries celebrate independence?
Yeah.
Now, which kind of independence do they celebrate, if at all they use francs? Like, and by the way, most of the French colonies, it is over not only like Congo that doesn't use francs,
Mm, maybe
and
today.
other actually other West African countries.
Now you see that something that you ought to know about this currency. Um, it is never on the same level with with the French people's money.
Mm, true.
That is the funniest thing. As much as you use the Francais currency, it is never on the same level with the other currency. You cannot be on the same level with your colonizers. You as whatever, you can never be on the same level, stuff like that. We have had South Sudanese using a dollar,
Mm,
the US dollars, as a means of that's the currency they use over there. But their dollar is always, lower than the US dollar. Together. So it's the same thing with this. But as we have Rwanda using Mafaranga, which is also backed up by the French. Now the same thing with the Senegal. So I think there is a mandatory that falls in, of course, these very currencies. I told you a story before. There is usually well, when you look at a country like Kenya, um, um, Kenya Kenya's currency is always trying to outcompete. All right, and it's because of the stakeholders in the Kenyan's entire economic system. Kenya as a country, it does not own its economy. Kenya doesn't own its economy. Kenya doesn't actually run the main banks because the biggest shareholders in these big banks are actually British people. So it is important that they secure the value of Kenyan shillings to their advantage. Now, when you look at the value of the Kenyan shillings, actually, it does not make value when you are in Kenya. Now, that's the most terrible thing. First of all, the value seems to be heavy, but again, the prices of the things are high, which actually makes the people not to feel the value of the money. So if you are having, let me say, a Kenyan shillings, and you decide to come and use it here in Uganda, it's when you feel the value of the Kenyan shillings here in Uganda. So where are they getting the advantage of this money? They are not the buyers of day-to-day things. People who run this economy are not the buyers. They don't buy your ugali, they don't buy your bread, they don't buy your salt. They don't use this money as an exchange, a direct exchange, but rather they benefit from the interest that this money has. I'm trying to use an example of Kenya because apparently, at least it's a country I know better than Senegal. Um, so, as much as it is called a Kenyan shilling, in one way or the other, by the way, and someone would say it is owned by the Kenyans, but when you look at the sector and the people who have the shares in this entire in the banking system, you'll come to realize that the Kenyan shilling is not owned by the Kenyans, but rather the British people. And the Ugandan shillings will still be owned by the British if not for Idi Amin, by the way. Um, so, and this is why when you are having a Kenyan shilling in Kenya, it doesn't have value. All right, you don't feel the weight because if you're having the money and you're going to purchase some sold and it's extremely expensive, then what is the value of this money to you? But if you're having a Kenyan shillings, you come like to, let me say, to Uganda, you convert this money and then it's going to buy something a little bit bigger than what it can buy in Kenya, which actually does not balance. Because if the people who have this money cannot feel its value, then the value is useless. But it is important to the external markets, and it is important to the bigger one, the bigger traders who are always in the exchange, the money, the currency, or the money exchange system, or the forex system. And the forex system is usually, of course, who are the people who benefit from this forex? These are the big men in the system, in the banking system. So I'm using this example to try and, of course, elaborate a little bit about what Innocent was like trying to question. So we are having the same system, with these other countries that use the franc currency within their countries. They also their money is also backed up by these very countries. Now, France has a big shareholdings in the banking system and the economical system of these particular countries that use this money. And this is why we are seeing the to be president of Senegal saying the first thing he's going to do is, of course, to scrap away that kind of currency and introduce a new independent, of course, Senegalese currency that is not backed up by the outside bankers, of course, like France and the other bankers. So I know, given the fact and that the economy of Senegal is at a turmoil, it is going through a lot and big challenges as of now. It may be very hard and extremely challenging actually for him to make this come through within our shortest time. But I don't know how good he is with the economy. I don't know how good he is with that economical game. But maybe he has plan B, which we are yet to understand. I guess we should give him a chance with that promise, and we see if at all he can make this come up. I know with the challenge or the economical challenge that Senegal is experiencing, it may take Senegal a little bit backward, a little bit. But again, I believe that when they stabilize, given the fact that they are running their banking system, because of course, if they decide to use their own Senegalese currency, that means the power of the Senegal's banking system at least will be at a certain percentage in the hand of the Senegalese government or the Senegal's nation. So I feel like we should give him a chance, though this is going to be quite challenging and I should say extremely challenging, given a country that is not economically sustainable, that is not economically strong. It has been broken down for some good time now. Well, let's hope things are work out to, of course, to his advantage, or things work out for him. And I know as he's not going to work alone, of course, we'll have ministers and the cabinets and other people probably. Well, I'm looking forward, as me, I'm looking forward to see that great change in, of course, Senegal. Now that we know that the coalition plan to create this. All right. We know that Faye has promised to reduce presidential powers and reintroduce the vice presidency. We're waiting. Angela producing. Apparently, he doesn't want to be the entire, like a solemn decision maker, which I think is a little bit good. Because at times, you cannot be best in everything. You understand? But if like yeah, I think it's a good idea. I feel like it's a good idea. But well, we're also looking forward to seeing that. And then he also, we say like we talked about him wanting about the monetary, and he also believes that Faye believes in the renegotiation of contracts between the government and corporations in sectors ranging from energy and mining to fishing. He has also he has also pledged to equally distribute profits out of gas fields that is expected to start production, of course, this year. So they are expected to start production of gas this very year in Senegal. And we know that Senegal has been into fishing a lot. And by the way, they love eating fish. Abantu abali ebyennyanja bazaala nnyo baba bayimaayima buli ssaawa. Okay, so Fire aims to enhance the reputation and integrity of the defense and security forces through a concerted effort to combat corruption and inefficiency. This initiative seeks to ensure the optimal utilization of resources by implementing programs aimed at boosting the morale, motivation, and oversight of the officers. In additionally, there is a commitment to raise the salaries of lower ranking personnel. Of course, his program pledges to uphold the core identity of the armed forces of Senegal by advocating for a return of military principles, preventing their involvement in political involvement. So he doesn't want soldiers to, uh, military people to, of course, involve in politics because they are there to protect the nation. And I guess when it comes to politics,
By
comes
the
with
way,
biasness.
on Saturday, like I had some people. Actually, I not giving my submission. Like I found some guys somewhere. Like they were like, is it really good? Like for army to engage in in everything in a country. Let it be construction of roads. Let it be like treating people in hospitals.
That one is good. That one is service.
Mm,
Constructing roads is a service. It's extremely
yeah.
okay. Treating, because we have medical personnel and a military, treating people is or is part of the service, because these are the people who are supposed to protect. Once again, uh, um,
Nekati,
so it
now
is okay.
where do we put those people that have of course learned like that have got going through school? They are not military people. Like are they going to get jobs if the army can do all that stuff?
What are you talking about? When the army itself, not every civilian can go at the front line when people are sick. Definitely, they have to have professionals. Imagine the military. No, I understand what you're saying. We are in a military, we have doctors. When they are not at the front line, why don't they do the services? And first of all, these services they are doing are for free.
Like kati omwana wo shaka yasoma busawo,
Mm.
is he going to be employed?
They will be employed because I've not
Yeah.
seen soldiers, not first way.
Where
I've not seen.
they are competing with the army.
No, what
They are
I'm saying.
competing.
No, I've not seen soldiers work in other hospitals. I see them working in military hospitals. Military barracks, bases have their
What
hospitals.
I mean, not like military, like we see, like
Okay,
Gabasawo
where
Obalaba,
Tubalabieko?
Ola, like you see that maybe when they start, like you see them in public hospitals.
Like,
When it
I've
comes to
not seen them
when it
before.
gamba
Mm.
sigament whatever.
Naye nga gye bali nsima bulungi gye bali bo.
All the mention I get them so
Mm.
Nagambye, like I found people like having a conversation like nti amagye singa tutandika okugalaba nga bali mu malwaliro amagye when it comes for construction of roads like abaana abasomye ba engineer, where are they going to be employed okujjako nga nabo genda amagye.
Yeah, I don't really understand that now. I'm a little bit confused about that.
Like what I mean is
Okay, you
what
mean
I
to
what
say
I
the
mean
army
is
taking
this.
over everything?
Chengamba.
That is impossible. Are they just
Chengamba.
they are just thinking about
It can be possible.
it?
Ne bakireetanga like for you like okufuna omulimu obulungi nga you must be in army ng'olina kusooka gendako magi. You'll find like almost the entire population ng'eri magi.
It's impossible.
Hey.
Why am I saying this? Probably maybe these people are talking about things like we have seen military people doing free services. We've seen free services coming in places. Let me say maybe they're going to treat people, and maybe at the hospital they don't have enough medical professions. And usually I see they build some tents. They're even working in their uniforms with their
That is
gowns.
okay. That is
But
okay.
military,
What
that
I mean
for you
is
to be a
this.
doctor, you should
What
be a
What
soldier.
I mean is this: like military competing with civilians for jobs, because the other people they are working for of course for a government, not so. Kati, what I mean, like, if at all we will start seeing like military people in black hospital, like putting on those gowns, in reality, babeera basawo, but
I understand, but they were just
like,
imagining.
yeah,
Were
like
they imagining something that what if it
abantu baba
happened?
bagenda kufuna batya emirimu.
But it's impossible. I feel
You
like
see
the
them like in
imagination is so
everything.
impossible.
Mu byuma
No,
ebyakasooli,
the
you find
imagination is
military people.
impossible.
You find military people. It is
We cannot, no,
impossible.
no,
Nothing is
we cannot talk
impossible.
about an impossible thing.
Nothing is impossible.
No, 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 no. We cannot talk about an impossible thing. The army itself doesn't have enough professionals. Walabakiza akola mu ddwaliro ly'abasirikale b'amagye si w'amagye. Bo benyini they don't have enough. Kati ate how do kiri impossible ekyo kiroto kye baloota genda bagambe bakiveeko.
Tewali kitasoboka mu
Kati
gavumenti
kati
Nothing is. If at all,
kiri weird.
listen, if at all the government decides, or the government are deciding and they take out curfew within a few days, nothing is impossible.
Those are
my
different
dear.
things.
No,
Okay.
it's not a different.
Okay, fine.
It's not.
Wait.
It's not.
There is
Do you
something
remember?
can.
Listen.
What is the population of the army? First calculate.
It
What
is
is the
small.
population of
It
the
is small.
army
It is small
compared to the
It is
people?
small, very small compared
Now,
to the
why
people.
should we even be debating about it?
It is small compared to the people. Very small.
So
And even if like you calculate,
even if they wanted, it can't work because the population is very small. No, it's just awful. No, that was anyway. Everyone has their own insight and how they view things. But if the population of the army is smaller, then how can they outcompete this other? And this is where I'm having. I'm not like copying. I'm not reading. Let me say. I think they are thinking about something that is not. Ekitasoboka tekisoboka kuba ekisooka abamagye bo nga bo tebalina ba professionals. Abantu abasinga abali professional they even fear okujoininga amagye. Bw'ate bw'oba oli professional bakukwata nga kyatika. But a lot of people batya okujoininga ekintu ekyo. Bw'oba oli professional, let me say you're working at Mulago Hospital. Mulago Hospital, let me assume it's a government hospital. All the free things that a soldier or a military doctor receives, a civilian doctor receives ku Mulago. The housing yaberere, masanyalazi gabe. In fact, ye bakana bulungi okusinga oli. Masanyalazi gaberere, emmere badya meals, babafumbira free meals awo ku ddwaliro apparently. So kati kiki ekiba kyagala omuyingiza amagye ng'omusaala gw'amagye bagwongedde ky'oba ogamba when their salary is a little bit higher because nze ndaba nga it's just anyway maybe it's me who's not understanding this but I feel like no a small population tesobola ku outcompeting abantu bangi mukama atuyamba obudde buggweeyo. Anyway, let me see. Fire believes that no. Like when I was saying that he was trying to, of course, he was pledging to uphold the core identity of the armed forces of Senegal by advocating for a return of military principles, preventing their involvement in political environment. And of course, the plan includes bolstering the air capabilities of the army through the procurement of strategic transport aircraft such as the C-130 to fulfill external commitments um, effectively. Actually, we've seen a lot of military people involving themselves in politics. This is something very undebatable. We've seen military people involving themselves in politics in some, areas in Africa, and Uganda is among. We've seen some presidents, of course, the military personnel. We have seen some ministers in Uganda who are military personnel, and they are involving in politics. But actually, I think according to politics, they are not supposed. And as a military person, that is not your duty. But I think maybe it is okay for someone to have some combat knowledge and maybe know security stuff because as you are a leader you should know the people you are leading, you should know the hardships they are going through, You should know what they're experiencing. So, understanding combat and its code of conduct maybe is an added advantage to a leader. But saying that I'm a military personnel and again I'm your president or something like that creates a little bit of biasness, of which, yeah, I do agree with Faye, and I'm looking forward to see this. And I know Faye is a military personnel. For the little I've known about him, he's not a military personnel. So maybe it frightens him, you know. So it's important that he tries to keep his back checked. Now, fire. I see.
ebiti biwanvu biti
Oh,
obuti bwakuvamu.
Fire believes there should be no ties between the executive and the judiciary. His plan involves transitioning from a constitutional council to a constitutional court. His positioning, that positioning it as the apex of the judicial structure. We know that in a bid to enhance accountability and fortify oversight mechanism, he proposes abolishing political fines and substituting them with the special funds allocated by the Assembly for critical operations such as arms, procurement, um, and clandestine missions. Of course, um, the legislation will be introduced to safeguard whistleblowers, aligning with the principles outlined in the law of transparency in public finance management. We should remember that Faye was born in 1980 in India, Ganiao, at the Western Department of Mbaure. He has two wives, Marie Connie Faye and Absa Faye. Marie Connie, a close relative of her husband, of course, have together had four children, three boys and a girl. He has not had any children with Absa. Faye and Sonko are close friends, even naming one of his sons, Osman, in honor of their friendship. So apparently, Dude has two wives. While one, I think, is newly wedded, or maybe is a new Mogole. Maybe she's not been in marriage for a long time. But there is the other with whom he has four children, three girls and one boy. So Faye apparently is a polygamous African man. We are waiting to see how he's gonna run this thing for him now. Yeah. Oh, get out, call. Get in, that. I such a damn sample don't go for me. You like that?
Uh, I don't know why there are many incoming presidents in Africa. There is that tendency they have
Kati
because
omuntu akola atya odda okusaba?
we see that Faye says that he believes in the system change and left-wing Pan-Africans to reclaim Senegal's sovereignty and patriotic of course, and some analysts said believe in the illusion of intention to distance the country from Western powers, especially former colonial ruler France. He also vowed to fight French economic stranglehold over Senegal if elected. For me, there is something I'm seeing in this. If at all, he's voted for a young man believes to distance himself from France, of which even the currency of Senegal is in France's footprints. like my mind reads on a wind, or of course, of change that is blowing across almost all West African countries. I will not make a decision like over this right now, but according to me, there is an influencer I see behind Faye's actions and Faye's way of doing political issues, because this guy, like they said, is a former tax collector. He has seen a lot of loopholes in Senegalese.
Demand.
Niyamukoledde
Abamanyi olabika obalaba tebategeera. Nze tugali ng'akajja gambikunyumiza naye nga tonnabitegeera bulungi. Nasanga ndabagamba bulaba Maria ayina entondo naye.
ate tebamanyi gundi. Nze nina gye ndi. Tebamanyi ki? Tebamanyi kantu kano kafiitingisawo nga bw'okalaba. Oba nze mbeera nkeera dimensions entuufu gwe tolaba nga kijjirako eno bbulaaka n'eno bbulaaka. Tekafiitingawo kakampe. Because like a leader can't come out of blue and say, for me, I'm distancing myself from France or a colonial master. Colonial masters in West African countries, their existence has been real since day one. It's not like these other African countries. Their existence has been so real in West African countries, because like if a leader comes out and says, during my regime, I want to distance this country from, I want to distance myself from, of course, West African countries. There is something that is behind all this. There is always an attachment between another European country that engages in such politics. Because only that I saw also from blue, I don't want to,
Kati kye n'agambye baamugambye tagenda kuddamu.
tagenda kudda.
We yavuddeko baamugambye he cannot go beyond that term. Kiseera ndowooza n'agamba wange kanvewo mu mirembe bye byatuuka Burkina Faso tebituuka wano.
So when will Africa get independence, like full independence, when we don't have people that, of course, influence our politics every time? When will we have that free Africa for Africans? When no one can tell you that, uh, if at all you come for next term, you're gone. If at all you do this, this is how you must arrange chairs in your house. When will Africa be free? When will African democratic system, political system, be fully, of course, revised by Africans, not oppressors, not European countries? When will Africans be free in everything? If at all we can embrace freedom or independence, when we can no longer, actually, this guy, whatever, his manifesto is not too bad. He's talking about like making reforms in the currency, forming a new currency in, of course, in Senegal. That is good, and even other things that he pointed out for in his manifestos. In his manifesto, I just wish this guy good luck, but I know he's overambitious, if I may say. He's overambitious, and the
But it's
coalition
a good thing.
to be overambitious.
But especially when it comes to it, it's a good thing. He will do what he can do.
Uh, we normally say, like in our native language, like if you chase a lot of rabbits, you can't get one. Overambitiousness. Biseebisinga nayo it's not good at times. You must handle. However, people want that kind of exaggeration and excitement when it comes to Africa. Like the other guy who, like I told you, said that he's going to pay the policeman. He's going to pay police 1 million per person
Mm.
every month. That is excitement. That is exaggeration. Now, if you pay the police 1 m, me as an average person, how am I going to gain that 1 million? Kitegeera? So people
No,
kola amakulu.
paying police 1 million has no problem. The thing is, where are you going to get it? I think that's the most important thing. An average person, well, an average person, then you create available jobs. Average person, you cannot wake up and say you're going to give average people salary, unless because if it's in Africa where a country is just developing, but maybe giving police 1 million is okay. But the biggest question is, where are they going to get the 1 million? Because actually, people who protect banks, that's why you're having robbers. You are letting someone safeguard, of course, a car that is driving money, but this person has slept angry for 4 days. What do you expect?
For me, I think like even going into deep of like salary to government workers, civil servants, and so
Mm.
like first look into the country's domestic problems. Okitegeera? If at all people very many people are unemployed and you're looking at increasing someone's salary, people are just looking at people are unemployed.
I feel like if they are to increase salary of merely three people, I support that. If you are to increase salary of course of police officers, I support. I don't support increasing salary of members of parliament who have got cars, who have fuel. They get fuel for free. The cars are servicing for free. They have free housing. But all they do is to wake up in the morning, go to the parliament, and each time they go to the parliament, of course, which is apparently every once in a week, let me say, sometimes it happens to be like twice, at times thrice. Whenever they reach the parliament, they receive a certain amount of allowance. These are people I would not even wish for their salary to be more, but again, it is more than anybody else in the country. If they are to increase salary of the military people, I cannot disagree about that. These are people who are always at the front line. These are people who don't even have time to be with their families. Such kind of people need a very sounding mind for them to act, because there is no way you are not going to make there is no way someone who is having a gun, let me say a police officer, is going to take care of you when that people has a lot when that person has a lot of mental issues going on. You have to create you have to create peace in their mind for them to, of course, promote peace in the country. You have to give them that feel that they are loved for them to be able to fight for the people you want to fight them for. So me, I feel like giving salary to these two people, it is extremely important, and we have seen actually a lot of governments not minding about this. Ate kyekyenjawulo ekiri ku Nigeria
For me,
bo
for me,
barespectinga abantu abo.
I think the first things someone could have addressed like first, like before even thinking of increasing someone's salary. First, like there are people who are not that are not even getting any money. People who are not there. You're thinking of increasing, but
You cannot give people money like that. You cannot wake up and say, Maria, you are someone who doesn't work every week. I'm going to be giving you
for me, I
salary.
think like increasing salary when we are having the biggest population that is unemployed, that is creating gaps, income gaps between people. So kononyeza abantu first look like first make jobs for these other people, but whenever you increase salary for a certain group of people, when other people are not working, you're increasing income group, like income disparities among people. Anyway, for those that have been watching us right up from the first hour, thank you so much uh, for keeping tuned in from the first hour. Yes, for those that have been watching us from Facebook, Black Fire Network Radio Station, YouTube, Black Fire Network 2, and of course Twitter, Black Net 1,
Let me tell the president one.
Computer Fire. Thank you for watching. Thank you for always supporting in our shows here on Black Fire Network. Um, of course, for those that have given in their submissions today, we had Jeno Mosquito. Thank you for saying hello to the birthday girl, and of course, Madala from South Africa. Thank you for watching from Facebook. It has been a great show. Of course, we have been broadcasting live from Kampala, Uganda. It has been me, Innocent, with my colleague, Drop
Fire.
Salute.
I'm Detective Drop.
Detective
You
Drop.
don't know. You don't know that. See you guys.